Kumlein Black Gemara. This is the Gemara for Yom Tif, Sunday, Yevamos Daf Mem Ches Amid Aleph. So the last thing we learned in the Gemara and Zion Amid Beis was we had two brises. One brise compared an Eved Knani that was freed to a ger. And we assume in what way is it the same? Just like a ger has to have Kabbalahs and mitzvahs voluntarily, so too an Eved Knani, who even though he was forcibly converted and he has all the mitzvahs like a woman, but does not have all the mitzvahs like a free person, like a man. But when he is set free, he has to go through again Kabbalahs and mitzvahs on a voluntary basis. And then we brought another brisa where it says that we don't need his consent the second time around. So how does that work? So Sheisha wants to say this is the argument of Shimon Lozer and the Rabbanan. And they're arguing about that it says in the pasuk by Yefas Torah, this pretty woman, when you go to war, you're allowed to take her home, but you have to, in the first 30 days, we'll soon see whether it's 30 or longer, you have to let her sit there and cry, and hopefully you will lose interest in her. And it says in the pasuk, she'll cry, and as it comes along, the Tanakh says that there's a way of circumventing this issue, and that is by if she was not mekabel, but if she was mekabel the mitzvahs voluntarily, and she goes to the mikveh, then she becomes a full-fledged Jewish straight away. You can marry her straight away. Shimon says, I have a better ruse, that even though she does not voluntarily accept the mitzvahs, you can turn her into a shifcha, force her into a mikveh, and force her to mekabel mitzvahs and make her a maid, and then afterwards set her free and force her again, because he holds you can force her. You can force an eved to Kabbalah's mitzvahs, and the reason for that is we'll soon see, because since already they are sort of half a year, because they have to do all the mitzvahs like a woman, so it's much easier than to go from that stage to the next stage, and therefore even forced. So at the top of the page, it says my time, what's the svara? It says in pasuk. It says in pasuk, call eved ish miknas keser. It says the eved of ish, the slave of a man. Because Keser that was bought with money, and that he went can eat a Korban Pesach only if you malus him. So we darshan. First, we ask a question: Evedish, Levedisha. Does it make a difference who the master is? A master or mistress? Now the pshati is Ella Evedish atamal bal korche. The eved of a person you can mal against their own will. However, the atamal benish bal korche, but the son of a person. In other words, if a ger is going through conversion and he wants to convert, he cannot convert his son with him bal korche. If the son is an adult, he cannot do bal korche. But an eved, you can do bal korche. So we see the Shavuot clearly that an eved of an ish, that you can go ahead and you can it says a mal to ish mal, which sounds like even against their will. Rabbanan says, Rabbanan Amri. Rabbanan say Ula b'she Rabbanan Amar, and the Rabbanan say, what's this for the Rabbanan? They say that no, that even though he was already a slave, now you free him, you need his haskama for Kabbalah's and mitzvahs. Amar Ula says Ula kishem she had them all ben yishbal korche kach had them all ever yishbal korche make an equation that just like you cannot circumcise a benish, you can't just have a ger and force his older son to convert. So too, you cannot force an eved to convert. See how kol evedish, the pasuk kol evedish, slave a man. And when boy like Shmuel, that teaches us a whole different halacha altogether, entirely different. Shmuel says that mafket avle, if you're no longer the owner of the person, you set him free. Yatzal ched is free, but ain't tzadar get shichur, because you're stepping back, you're stepping aside, you completely sever all your ties. You no longer need a document of liberation like a divorce. Remember, it says kol eved ish miklas kesev. As long as eved ish, as long as you own him, first we say eved ish le'eved ish, not a woman. Ela eved sheyesh l'rishus l'rabbi, as long as you have control of him, kol eved. But you ain't rishus l'rabbi, if you have no control of him, ain't kol eved, no longer called eved. Says the Gemara, Moscow, that Papa asked a question. I don't see the correlations of the Papa. Maybe when did Rabbanan say that you cannot force is be a fast toyer, turn into a slave, and then the l'shaych mitzvahs? It was a slave for 1 minute, they never shaykh any mitzvahs. So therefore, if you want to make him a full-fledged Jew, they have to be on a voluntary basis. I will ever the shaykh mitzvahs, but an eved that is shaykh and mitzvah has been behaving like a yid for practicing like a yid for a long time. Also, that it can be on a voluntary basis. The time we learned, whether it's a ger, whether you buy a slave from a goy, so for the first time, then you kabbalas and mitzvahs on a voluntary basis. If you bought an evet from a yid who already practiced being a yid for a while and already went through a forced conversion in the first place, ain't the kabbalah. You don't need a second voluntary thing. Amani, who's the author of this? He says, even if you buy direct from a guy, not only if you buy from me, but if you buy from a guy, you don't have to makabel, you can force him. If you buy a slave from a guy who never practiced being yid, so the kabel, he has to makabel mitzvahs. So if you buy from a yid, ain't so the kabel, you don't have to makabel mitzvahs. So we have back to our question. There's still two brises. One brise says what that you cannot force a guy. Another brise says echad geb echad. I'm sure they are the same, but you could. It seems that what you could force a guy. So you want to kitani hili and tefillah. When we compare the two and evet to a gay, we're talking about going to the mikveh. That's talking about going to the mikveh. They both need a proper mikveh. That's what we learned. Now that we talked about the past Torah, we learned it says in pasuk. Gilchas Rosh, you should shave her head, and make her nails. What exactly are you supposed to make with her nails? So I have an interesting argument between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Kiva. Lezer says, talk it. You have to cut the nails. Rabbi Kiva says to make it look ugly. Kiva says, tag to let it grow. It says the word you have to do with the head and do the nails. By the head, we're talking about what? Shave her head to make it look ugly. So we see from here clearly a woman shaving her head makes her look ugly. Avkan, how about it also? And we see furthermore, but Rabbi Kiva says, "Never see what Rabbi Kiva says. What's the purpose of shaving your head and make it look ugly? Make it look in a way revolting that he shouldn't be interested in her. Afkan nivel. So the purpose of the nails is to make it look ugly. And how is that done? By having long nails. Obviously, fashions change, so maybe things change today. But nevertheless, it seems that shaving the head is considered double nivel. But proof to the words of Rabbi Lezer, it says, has been shown. You are the Melech, the son of Shaul went to greet David Melech, Lazar like to do his feet, Lazar, so he didn't do his mustache. What does it mean? He didn't shave. Ma'aseh about a shave. So we learned. Back to the passing about the fast Torah, the box of the Yevamos should cry after her parents. Now Lezer says, the Yevamos Mamish cry literally after her father and her mother. The Kiva says, the Yevamos she should first cry and get out of her system the desire to serve away the Zara. The nafkamini is how do we understand pshat in the pasuk, or what happens? She's an orphan, she has no parents. Can you take her, wed her straight away? It says the pasuk, they actually said to a piece of wood, "You are our father." So therefore, we see that we find that euphemism for avodah zarah. Okay, it says in the pasuk yerach yamim. It says a month, then it says days. Yerach shleshim. So 30 days you have to wait. You wait 90 days. Yerach shleshim. A month is 30 days. Shleshim and yamim is shleshim. It says Yerech is 30, Yomim is 30, that's 60, but Achakain, and afterwards you can weather Shleishim for 30 to 90 days. Mask will be exactly how you live shot. Then what about Yerech Shleishim? A month is 30 days, Yomim Shleishim, days is 30 days, but Achakain, and afterwards it seems to repeat the whole exercise. Kihani, there's another 60 days, it's 120 days. Kasha is a good question. So I'm learning Shmuel says that you're allowed to keep in your house slaves that refuse to circumcise themselves. You're allowed to keep them. And the Kiva says, you're not allowed to keep them. Why can't you keep them? So some say because they're going to make you blind Yainesa, they're a goy, and so on. Today's already asked if that's the reason why, then how come those there's certain conditions you can keep them, still worry about Yainesa, but rather because, says Taisus, Adebisha told Avraham Avinu to circumcise all Zavod, and that's how come you have to. So if an argument of Akiva Rabbi Shmuel, Akiva says you're not allowed to keep them at all, harbor them, and Rabbi Shmuel says you can't. It says in Pasuk regarding Shabbos, it says in Pasuk 6 days you should work, 7 days you should rest, in order that your cow and your donkey, the Yenofish ben Amasecha, that ben Amasecha should rest. The son of your maid should rest. So we see that what now we're talking about here an Eved who is not circumcised, and you have them in your house. How do we know we're talking about an uncircumcised Eved? We'll see in a minute. Amalei responded, but Shmoshe is talking about in a case where you couldn't. For example, you're born right before Shabbos, you didn't have a chance to opportunity to circumcise. That's what we're talking about. Says the Gemara, Kuli Alma, it seems clearly, however, the Enofish Ben Amisecha Be'eved Aru. Everyone seems to agree. They know Amisecha is referring to an Eved that's not circumcised. How do you know? My mashma, how do you know? The Tanya we learned, we know Amisecha Be'eved Aru, that was a non-circumcised Eved, maybe a circumcised Eved. It says in another passage, on Shabbos, you have to rest, don't do any work, you and your family. It says and also again in your midst, in your vicinity, that your slave should rest just like you. What slave are we talking about there? How do you have it? We're talking about a circumcised slave because he has to rest in Shabbos. We're talking about a slave that is uncircumcised. And then it says the pasuk and the game says who is this gate? We're not talking about the ordinary gate, because it's already mentioned later. It's that gate Toishet. About a gate Toishet. What exactly the definition of gate Toishet? Big achlekes in Gemara. But Rashi here actually says, interesting, a gate Toishet is someone who abandons Avodah Zarah, and also Rashi says observes Shabbos. Taisa says it's impossible. He's a guy. How can you observe Shabbos? But the Rashi says, interesting, gate Toishet, somebody who doesn't keep any mitzvahs. He's a guy. And he observes Shabbos like a 7-day Adventist. He keeps it like a yid. And Taisa says, we're talking about over here, that a Ger Toshev, that he's not allowed to work Shabbos for himself. He can, but he shouldn't work Shabbos for us. After as a Ger Toshev, it'll get said a real Ger Kishrayim. It says the passing later on a Ger Chashem Shadecha, to get Tzedek Gomer, or to include a regular Ger for Ger. Harman Mekayim the Hager is a Ger Toshev to get Toshev. I was Levi, like Kech, you buy a slave from a guy. Later to Lom, if he refuses to Mala Megalgo, you can have it for another 12 months. Mol, if he does, still refuses, comes back. I'm going to give a public command. It would seem that this view of Shmuel Levi does not follow Rabbi Akiva, who says you can't have him for 1 minute, or the Rabbi Akiva Amar Ein Mekayim. Rabbi Akiva says you cannot keep it at all. That's what he's talking about. What did Akiva say? That if you didn't talk about the gators at all, but if, for example, Rasha's deep shot, the one shot is if he talked about Milah and he was happy to do in the beginning, and then he changed his mind, then you keep on holding and hopefully you can convince him eventually. Or you talk to him about it every day. Someone trying to say, he said over this Gemara for Razri, he said that's true. That according to Rabbi Akiva, you can actually keep him. If let's say you talk to him, you're talking every day about Milah, why do you have to answer before that he bought a minute for Shabbos? And that's how it's possible to have this kind of an evidence uncircumcised in your midst on Shabbos. He should have answered this answer. We're talking about somebody that you initially wanted a milah, and then he changed his mind, so now you're holding him in your house. So you're right, but chodim at a time will come. They don't have to give you all the possibilities, give you one of them. Another thing, and everyone said his name. Who can you keep in your midst through an uncircumcised Ebed? Took him with condition not to malam, you can keep him. I'm going to give it a papa command, like I'm going to keep it. I'll keep him for 1 minute. I'm going to papa. The last head. Only if you didn't make it conditional. If you made it conditional, ask them make conditional. It's all right. Again, he said, Kiva tries to find a way that you can keep an Eved over Shabbos, and he said you brought a minute for Shabbos. Well, he's big limit. You have a chance to circumcise. You should have answered, this very answer that we gave right now, that you made it conditional, that you don't want to, that he doesn't want to be circumcised. Well, the time and according to you, why talking in you answer this as well? Last time it come many different options. You want to give them all, so he gave one of them. Nafcha killer in the portrait of Nafcha, the Yasis had to come and eat Achaz Hoisabet, so was sitting at the throne. But they wanted to circumcise the Gilgul Mama, they kept him there for 12 months. But Chosru Mochel, they sold it to Goy. Command, Kiaitana, like follow the price of Tanya, like if he refuses to circumcise, Megal Moshe, you hold it 12 months. Like Mol Chosru Mochel comes to Goy. If you're a mashing oyster Israel, you're not allowed to keep him even for 1 minute. If they have said tadas, because he is tummy, we will gaze on going that they should be tummy, and he'll touch tadas and become tummy. We'll be as muchal as far if it's a city and by the border, a mashing oyster is a goy. We don't want to have him for a minute. Shema Yishama Dava, you might hear some of the secrets there. And the and he has no idea to be discreet. And furthermore, he'll go go tell his friends the goy. Tanya why is it? Again, today are suffering. He says, you know why they're suffering? And you should lame. That all kinds of all kinds of pains and suffering, and that is mitnei. As a guy, they didn't fulfill the mitzvah mitnei, so now as a yid, they're getting punished for it. So they can go to Gan Eden. Can't be. It's like a new person. Why should he have to suffer for the mitzvahs that he didn't do? Why they're punished? But they look at mitzvahs Israel because they don't know how to keep all the mitzvahs like a yid, and therefore they will and they do avedis, and that's why they get punished. Abba Chana says near Rabbi Lazar because they don't do mitzvahs out of love of Hashem, they do it out of fear. And Teshuvah explains sometimes we say love is a good thing, sometimes it's not a good thing, but they do it purely out of fear of punishment. Mothers say they should show atzmam. It's fascinating because they delayed as if they have a mitzvah to convert, because they have, as an Ramban said, the Chidah brings Geish in his guy. It doesn't say a Goyish in his guy, but a Geish in his guy. It means he already had a Jewish Hashem beforehand. And if he had a Jewish Hashem beforehand, he should have become Jewish even earlier. As if it's incumbent upon him to become a Yid. It's a mitzvah on a Geish to become a Yid, because of that neshama that he had. And why did you do it earlier? For that he gets punished. In fact, there's a pasuk that suggests that. It says, David shall pay you for your work. You'll get your full reward. Is that you want to get protected by him, the government, etc. So we see that because you went ahead and you decided to come and everything else, then it means that and she was, and this is from my rules. So why was she rewarded? Because she did it quickly, as soon as possible. Didn't do it any earlier, even though it's a bit hard to understand because she was married for a number of years, to have male children, Machal and Killian, and they didn't convert according to many poskim. So they didn't convert. Why wasn't she punished? She could have done it earlier. Anyway, this ends today's Gemara. Have a good day.